This episode of the Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. This is our Baja Sessions recording that we do every Monday. And it's actually brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico, they're your people that you want to contact. You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have a great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com, the easiest way to get Mexican auto insurance. I will tell you from personal experience, I've been driving down, popped on my cell phone in the passenger seat, ordered my insurance, and had it by the time I got to the border. So please check them out. Today, we've got an exciting show. I've got my good friend, Jim Hancock, on the show. What's happening, Jim?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, Jim. I'm glad I caught up with you, man. You're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on. It seems like I always run into you in the most random occasions.
Yeah, I think we do. And we haven't ran into a lot of the things that I've been doing internationally or something. So I'm going to have to invite you to get your ass overseas, too.
I just got to go further, right? Get on the plane. Because
right.
You've been having a lot of fun for a long time, my friend.
Yeah, I have. And I'm really fortunate that the, focus of a lot of that fun was Baja.
So,
and from the first times I went, I had a friend in high school whose parents had a really cool vintage trailer, which I'm into as well, down in Rosarito in the late '70s. And then I went to my first 500 or 1,000, one of the two, in 79, 80, I think. And I've it's always been a magical place for me, and I've got involved with Ivan Stewart in the early '80s, and we did a few projects together, and here I am. A lot of people think it looks like fun all the time, but I still get up in the morning and kind of got to figure out how to make money and go to work. It's not that I get up in the morning and go, wow, I'm going to go have fun today.
Yeah.
Even though going to Baja, as we know, is just magic.
Well, and what I think is fascinating about you, Jim, is that you've built a career around being able to go down there. I know you've had a number of clients that you've worked with that you've put or helped get into race cars and been involved with their race programs, like you just mentioned. Can you rattle off a few of those teams that you worked with down there?
Well, I mean, it started with Ivan in the early '80s, and actually that started with building a couple of rally cars for U.S. Rally. I went to where I thought off-road knowledge was, and actually I think he was 13 or 14-year-old Craig Stewart, Ivan's son, that builds race cars now. He'll tell you I was his first boss because I hired him to build a Oldsmobile rally car and then a Toyota rally car. But I was obviously on a budget hiring a 14-year-old to build the car for me. But I did that, and then got involved in the sport a bit during the '90s when I was doing the No Fear stuff, and then kind of built a business around taking guests down there in partnership with the Wide Open program that Todd Clement had then and Ryan Thomas, and built that into something that we took 100 to 200 people a year down on tours, and then started packaging them together to do races. And I entered, three was kind of the minimum, but entered as many as 5 or 6 different teams under the Wide Open banner. But we did it our own way. We would have our own people there in production. We would have a lot of our own support separate, and we did it just different. We did the tours very different, but we did the race different as well. And we took Paul Newman and Jesse James and Patrick Dempsey and Boris Said and Stefan Johansson and people from different disciplines in racing and different cultures and worlds, and got to expose a lot of different people to Baja.
Yeah, well,
and I was involved in the first dust to glory and from a producer standpoint in raising capital, and then was also involved just recently in the second dust to glory with Bud Bretzman in this basically similar but bigger capacity. So I've always been very, very passionate. I'm really fortunate. I've got to spend a lot of time down there, and hasn't been as much as recently as I would like, but that's what you're always chasing.
Yeah, well, on this show, I like to have people on that really represent the spirit of Baja and, somewhat of a historical perspective of what's been going on down there. And the reality is, even more of a reminder today, listening to you, you've influenced so many people's opinions about Baja, and you've made it possible for so many people to go down there and enjoy everything that I love about Baja, and that's the backcountry, the dirt roads, in a buggy or a race car, to really see outside of the city limits what that's like. And we get to hear the stories when we meet people randomly going, oh yeah, I went on this tour, and I know immediately it was one of the groups that you guys had at Horsepower working with Todd over the years, because you guys you had so many customers that went through there over the years. I can only imagine.
Yeah, we like I was saying, at one point we took a lot of people. The Centrix program was what kind of launched it for us, and obviously launched it for Wide Open as well. When Bob Sutton with Centrix came in, and we put together a program, an incentive program for him and his business of auto finance with dealers all over the country. And what was great was the ability to bring a group of people. I mean, we had groups as big as like 25, 30 people that would all be in buggies. And, it's just such an experience, as to see Baja from the dirt. And then we would have these fabulous safari lunches. They'd start, like you said, at Horsepower, and we'd get out in the middle of nowhere. At least when you're driving those cars, you think it's the middle of nowhere, because you haven't seen pavement for hours and everything else. You don't know that just over the next hill is pavement. It's still not much of a town or a road, and we'd set up lunch and everything. And and then there's one of my favorite words in branding and marketing is mystery. And there's such a mystery about Baja. And we created these tours around mystery where people didn't know, what would you stay in the next night? What type of place would you stay in? What would you see? There's pine forest down here. People still don't know that Laguna Hanson's Big Bear, and pine trees and conifers and everything else are down there. And then you go through dry lake beds, and then you're on the Sea of Cortez, and then you're on the Pacific. And then, it's such an amazing experience to take people on.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. I know every time I take somebody new down there, that's my favorite part, because I know what they're going to say either during the trip or when they get back home, and I know they're going to be completely hooked. So I have I got a random question for you, just because in my marketing world, knowing, what it's like to work with celebrities and stuff like that, how do you convince a celebrity to go to Baja? And then once you got them hooked, how do you convince their agent to say yes and everybody involved in their lives? I just don't know how to do that. You certainly have in your past.
The first thing you do, and taking them down to race and taking them down on a tour are two different things.
Sure.
But they're not different. They're still across the border in Mexico, where, the first thing they said, well, how many beheadings were there today, or whatever that agents start throwing at you on everything down there.
Yeah.
And I remember, with Paul Newman, it was a little bit easier. Although he hadn't been down there in a long time, he did film some Western or something down there.
Uh-huh.
But I had a really good relationship with Paul. I'm really fortunate to have had that, a friendship. And we went down to do a 3 or 4 day tour, and before the race and pre-run essentially. But and it was magical for him.
Yeah.
And it just cemented everything else. I mean, if I had to say those big moments, it was sitting at Mike's Sky Ranch drinking tequila out of a milk carton when they shut the generator off, because the icon of American culture couldn't convince him to leave the generator on. And but to get him down there to race is a whole different ball game. And luckily, in his case, actually in Dempsey's case as well, it was kind of like, they came back in and they said, "Oh, we need this kind of insurance and that kind of insurance. And I'm like, I don't make money on this. I'm just, yes, I'll make money on the whole thing, but you're pushing everything to be productive at all. You know what? We just got to call it. You get to call Paul, or you get to call Patrick, or whoever else, and you tell them that they can't go because of all of your restrictions, and I'll just go on and do my day." And,
yeah,
that was it. And in both cases, we figured a way out, but you got to figure a way out because, and at the same time, I think the best thing that ever happened to Baja California was the swine flu, the drug issues, the border issues, and the economy collapse that in 2008, which was what collapsed my business down there. Actually, that's what killed the business we had built.
Mm-hmm.
But I still, in spite of the, financial hardships and everything else, I think it's the best thing that ever happened to Baja, because they, it was starting to become like South Beach South, and you had Trump Tower, and you had, Girls Gone Wild. Cabo was turning into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, everything was shaken up and started over, and the people in Baja believed in themselves again. I mean, now you go down and you go through Ensenada, and there's gift stores that have signs that say "Nothing from China in here,"
mm-hmm.
and they believe in themselves. I mean, there's like 30 craft breweries in Baja. Those aren't done for the tourists that are screaming down there for what used to be Mexico.
Yeah.
And, Guadalupe Valley, which I know is a huge passion for you, and I, has been a huge passion for me for a long, long time, way before, not to sound like I can pick it or anything, way before the current trend hit on everything around the wineries and everything. And we have mutual friends down there that, La Villa del Valle just built that thing. No pool, no winery, no restaurant. Everything was just this one little place. And I've always loved it. And I remember Eileen telling me the story that the thing Guadalupe Valley was famous for was its olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
And you could go to finest restaurants in New York City, and they would have the olive oil, not from Italy, but from Guadalupe Valley.
Yeah, sure.
But you couldn't get it anywhere in Mexico. Couldn't get it in Baja, and it's from right there because they just didn't believe in themselves. And now the Mexicans believe in themselves. That's why I say the best thing to happen was all that other stuff, because you go down there and there's a pride that comes out of it.
Jim, that's an interesting perspective because I had not heard it before, but I definitely, because I've been going to Mexico since 1983, I definitely can see exactly what you're talking about. And when the shakeup happened and the pride that these people have now, you're absolutely right, especially the pride in these wineries and what they're doing there. I'm just grateful to be a part of that. So thanks for sharing your perspective on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that because I think it's important for people to know this isn't Girls Gone Wild. This is, like you said, it's a place now that people are very passionate about their goods and wares, the wineries, the craft beer movement, even the artistic movement that's happening down there. Really, they're just showcasing who they are as a people, and I love sharing that.
The architecture that's coming out of just the northern Baja part, when everything you see going on in Guadalupe Valley, like you said, the art, the architecture, everything, and obviously the culinary experience is just, nobody knows about it. Or not everybody. A lot of people are learning about it, but it's still a fairly hidden secret there. I was really, really fortunate I was at the Upfronts in New York, and happened to be in the same little green room with Anthony Bourdain, and he didn't have an entourage or anything else, just sitting there on his phone, just a few people in the room. And I walked up and I was like, "Hey man, I loved your stuff on Baja that you just did.
Yeah.
It was when he was still with Discovery before CNN, and I said, I just got to tell you,